everybody. Thank you for joining Clarity with Amber Price, featuring Lori Brant. Today, Lori Brant joins us. She's also known as the Happiness Coach and has been coaching one-on-one and groups for 10 years and provides life coach certification with an ICF-approved coaching program. Her new projects include a 3-day conference called Unleash Your Greatness Conference in May each year, and her Happiness Coach podcast on Podbean. Lori has her Bachelor of Psychology, Bachelor of Education, is an ACC certified life coach, author, Master Spirit life coach, speaker, Master of Metaphysics, life coach and trainer, and mentor. Lori is also the author of the Happiness Toolbox, Finding Happiness Regardless of Circumstances. Welcome, Lori.
Oh, thanks, Amber, for having me. I'm so excited.
Anytime. I'm so excited to have you too. And I am even more excited to share with the viewers, what exactly is the Happiness Coach? What is a life coach?
That's a loaded question. I think that, like with everything, there's a variety in what you can expect when you see a coach. And I think my definition of a life coach is I help to establish where a client is now, where they want to be, and highlight what it is that's keeping them from getting there, and then creating a plan to move through any roadblocks and getting what it is that they want.
That sounds exactly what almost everybody's been looking for. I know even for myself, when you're looking at your life and you're thinking, how do I design the perfect life? You know, it's not something that you just get handed to you. You have to kind of plan and make, I guess, goals in order to get to that. So, what do people expect if they are to do a session with you? Like, what is the process of doing this?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting about the definition I just gave you is that often when people are looking for something different and they're wanting to get something or achieve something, there usually is a route to their desire. And that route that's creating the desire can sometimes highlight for me an old pattern limiting belief. And once we work through the limiting belief, the actual goal that they thought that they wanted is most often not, in fact, what they want. What they want is they want a relief. They want relief. They want to live differently than the way that they had been living, because the way that they're living now or the way that they had been living is creating discomfort. And they want to get rid of the discomfort, and they believe that by getting something different or achieving something, then that will go away. And then, and it's come to my understanding that any form of discontent is telling me that there's a limiting belief that's active. And if we can start to highlight what those limiting beliefs are and how to transform them and move through them, and recognize when they pop up again before they take charge of our lives, we can literally transform how we are moving through the world. And it's just such a powerful experience that I myself experienced and have watched numerous other people experience, that I can't help but get excited, because I feel like I believe that's what people really want, but tend to be a little bit afraid of going there.
It makes sense. It's the fear of, who am I in that form? I know who I am. I'm comfortable in this zone right now of, maybe if it is doing the same thing over and over and expecting the different result and nothing changing to get to there. But there is that fear of, who am I going to be, and what do I feel like, and what does my life look like in that? So there is that little bit of resistance, I guess, in people wanting to take that leap.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is what some people refer to as the comfort zone. And I kind of talk about it in my new book, The Outside Zone, because I believe that there's one zone that I personally want to live every day from, and I call it the alignment zone. And what that means is it's a space where my mind is lined up with the true essence of who I am. Now, when I first started my journey, I thought once you figured that out, you just live from there and your life is wonderful and nothing bad happens. And and
Yeah.
that's not my experience, though. What I found is that what I call the alignment zone is that place where my mind and the true essence of who I am lines up. It is that place where a lot of spiritual people have an experience of and then just can't wait to go back there. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's
Yes.
different for everybody. So what's it like for you, by the way? Like,
It is a choice to go back to that feeling. And it's almost like as soon as I know that I'm drifting from that alignment zone, I know that, wait a second, that doesn't feel right. Because now I'm starting to feel like I have to control something, or I'm anxious or nervous or worried. And none of those are in alignment with what our soul is supposed to be feeling, right? So then
right.
I pull it back and I think, oh, I just want peace. I just want to feel, grounded, I guess, for lack of a better word. So when I'm able to get into that alignment zone, it is magnificent. And I'm with you. I get so excited by it because everything starts to attract. Like, you start to achieve the goals. Things start to line up the way that you want them to. You have a better understanding and patience, and your perception is different to be able to handle things that you, in your, comfort zone, that doesn't feel great and is not in alignment, would normally trigger you. So for
So
me, it's like
yeah.
peace.
Yeah. And I love how you just talked about that, because the question you asked me is that what about people are afraid because they don't know what to expect? But that's the excitement, is that by getting out of your comfort zone, you're opening yourself up to the experience that you just described. You cannot have the experience that you just described in the comfort zone.
That's
So
right.
yes, comfort zone can appear to feel comfortable, can appear to feel secure and safe, but that is an illusion, because it's like, I'm inviting people to up their game, because what Amber just described is how we are supposed to be living our lives. It's being able to live from what you just described, and recognizing when you're moving out, and have the ability to choose to come back in. And to me, oh my gosh, like that is freedom. That is, you know, it's so beautiful, because it does not matter what job you have, what pandemic is happening, what, you know, demonstrations are happening, what disease you're moving through. If you have that strength and ability to to recognize when you're in alignment, when you're moving out, and to move yourself back in, then you are tapping into your natural state of peace, calm, and happiness. And it's just like, I feel like it's like I live my day in that zone and I move like this. So sometimes, you know, what you described as, when I move out and I start, oh, that feels uncomfortable, that to me is the universe supporting us in our movement to live life the way that we're capable of living. And that discomfort is a beautiful thing. And we need to kind of consider looking at that differently, because I think that we've been trained to believe that as soon as we feel discomfort, to immediately do something to stop it. and
That's the truth.
and
Yes,
that
that's the truth.
fuels our limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what keeps us out of alignment, by ignoring or trying to get rid of discomfort, rather than opening ourselves up to it. Like you just said, like, oh, wait a minute, what am I thinking? Like, what, you know, that doesn't feel good. Like, that is what it's supposed to do for us, not, you know, push it away, push it down, get rid of it, or resist it. Yeah.
That is something that I've always tried to instill in my children, because, I find that at school, and this is a no fault statement. This is my experience. It's true, because people want people to not inconvenience them with their state. And so if they're uncomfortable, upset, worried, or anxious, it's stop, you don't need to be there. Don't, just ignore it. Stop, don't even think about it. Or, you know, change and do something else, and, you know, get distracted by something to kind of just push it away, like you're saying, instead of, whoa, what is that telling me? Why am I feeling that? You know, it's like if you're cold, you're not going to say, oh, I'll just ignore it and stay cold. I'm going to put on a coat, or I'm going to go inside, or I'm going to change something to make myself be in alignment with what's the safest or healthiest or the best for my goals. So I've always tried to teach my children that too. If something is bugging you, don't try to, you know, let somebody else tell you you don't need to feel that way, or it's not the right timing to feel this way. Ask yourself why it keeps coming up, especially, and I don't know if you can identify with this, Lori, but when you're really needing to become in that alignment zone, something will happen, and the synchronicity of it. So it'll keep happening, and different parts and different people will keep bringing something up that is reminding you of that one thing you know you have to release and or work through. But that's when I usually think, okay, this is big. It's something, you know, the universe is telling me to get back in alignment with something, or to learn from it, not just to ignore it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, and you asked me, why do people go to a life coach? Mm-hmm. Well, I think that a lot of my clients are attracted to me because I'm going to work to find out what is fueling that thing to come back, because it's coming back because there's a pattern, and the pattern has been formed as a result of an old belief system. So for example, if you don't mind, I'd love to share an example of someone I worked with recently.
Yes.
And it was such a joy working with this particular client, because I know her. So she was able to share with me the impact afterwards, after working with me, because I often don't get to hear about that part. So this particular client didn't like to be in the limelight. Like, you know, she would work at something on a project, but if it resulted in her, if she was to become, let's say, successful and she'd be thrown into the limelight, she kind of resisted it. Mm-hmm. And the resistance showed up as distracting herself. So she would do laundry instead of working on her project, or she would do everything for other people but not work on the projects that were important to her. And this literally was something that kind of penetrated her whole life. And she declared that she just had a hard time focusing, you know, wasn't good at time management, and she was kind of covering it up. And so this is what is so frustrating, I think, and was for me too, because it's like, okay, I want to be in alignment. I want to look at my limiting beliefs, but how do you find them? Like, like how do you know what it is that's keeping you in that pattern? And like most things, it's a lot easier to be with someone who can point it out or help you through it, because when it's ourselves, it's hard to see. So with this particular client, we just, you know, we had worked on time management, and it really became apparent after a while that it had nothing to do with time management, because she was capable of following through on things for other people. Mm-hmm. It was just on her own personal projects. So what came to light was that she was really resisting being in the limelight. And I asked her, I said, you know, what would happen if you were in the limelight? And she said, well, people will make fun of me. You know, it'll be uncomfortable. And I asked her, you know, what's the earliest instance that you can recall where you were in the limelight and then people made fun of you? And this look just dropped over her. And she recalled being in grade 5. Now this woman's in her 40s. So in grade 5, a teacher called on her to go up to the board, like so many of us have had to do. And she did what she thought was, you know, the right thing. She did the best that she could do. And the teacher just took a strip off of her and said, you know, what, are you stupid? How do you not know how to do that? And she went back to her desk. And now this is just one instance, but that one instance, that child in grade 5, her grade 5 self said, don't ever put yourself in the limelight again, because if you do, you're going to feel the way you feel right now. And so that grade 5 version of her created a strategy so that would never happen again. And I said, so what was the strategy that you came up with? She said, I distracted myself. I pretended I was busy so I wouldn't be called on again. So that strategy that grade 5 little girl created was still being implemented throughout her life as an adult. And so the minute she would be close to being in the limelight, she would distract herself with other people's projects or household chores. And the beautiful thing about this is once we were able to recognize what was the root that was creating that stress for her when she was coming to the end of a project or becoming a success, she now is just exploding in her life. I mean, there is nothing that is keeping her from following through on all the goals that she's always wanted. So I think, to answer your question, we can work on moving toward goals, but if we're not clear on where those goals are originating from, then it's not going to be necessarily the results we want. So for example, if we are creating goals from the comfort zone or the outside zone, we are still in a state of resistance and we're not going to draw the goal or the experiences that we're wanting. But if we can move ourselves in a state of alignment with our true selves, so like this client was able to do, once she was able to recognize where that discomfort was coming from and stop resisting it and start naming it for what it was the grade 5 girl's strategy, not the strategy that serves her now. It kept her in the alignment zone so that when she was creating a plan or movement forward to achieve a goal, it was in alignment with her true self from a state of expansion and growth and love, rather than fear, resistance, or needing something other than what is. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you shared that, because there's going to be so many people, including myself, that either have already reflected on a portion of our life that stands out that we can kind of nail back to, this is where this came from. Or if they didn't know how to find that or understand why we've created the roundabout methods to kind of distract or divert ourselves from something to achieve those goals, they're going to know now that they can look that far back. I always found it was so interesting that when you do have that, all these great ideas and you have all these goals and people get to a certain point and then it's like, whoop, it falls off. And you're thinking, why? You just have to do this one last piece. And it's, okay, what is it? What is stopping you? Because you have this great idea or this great product and whatever it is, the support system, or you're on the front line doing it, and you're not following it through. And for the most part, would you find that it's people that are nervous about other people judging them and not, maybe thinking that everybody will enjoy what they're doing? Or do you feel like it's a variety of different reasons?
It will be whatever that person's upbringing and experiences and very unique life journey has presented them. And that's why one thing is not going to be the answer for all, but examples like my client just highlight the underestimated power of a limiting belief. And that people, I found that people don't really like to work on them. And I'm not the first person they want to go to. They want to go to the person that's going to tell them what to do differently. They're going to go to the person that's got the, the feel good strategy. And the thing is, because I think limiting beliefs have got a bad rap, because I think that they are attached to negative feelings. And so to work on them, I think people get afraid that, oh, then I'm going to feel worse than I feel right now. So why would I want to do that? But it's actually the limiting belief. If you work on it, it's going to break it open. It's going to crack the safe, and it's going to be like done, or at least it's going to be less impactful than it has been in the past. So if it comes up again, like you said, oh, it's recognizable now though. So it doesn't have the same power. It doesn't have the same charge. It doesn't have the same impact on your life. And then each time you recognize it, it keeps you in the alignment zone. So let's say, for example, at the beginning, that limiting belief knocked you right out, you know, maybe for months, maybe for years. But when you start working on them, it might knock you out, but you recognize it and you come back in. Maybe not all the way in, but you come back in. And then you work on it, you come again, comes up again. But eventually, like you said earlier at the beginning of this conversation, now you have this experience where you're able to recognize it so quickly that becomes the natural state of how you live your life, and that you're not being knocked out to the extremes anymore. You're just being knocked out a little bit. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not going to allow myself to follow that anymore because I'm choosing to feel the way I want to feel. That is the power that we have within us. And once you start tapping into it, it's unbelievable. It's like you want to just share it with the world, because it's like, hey people, you have everything within you to feel the way you want to feel right now. And that to me is like the most beautiful thing.
When I had first realized that I had a choice to decide if I was going to allow myself to go down that rabbit hole of negative emotions and almost give more energy to it, to feed it and become validated as to why my fears and worries and concerns were okay and why I was allowed to stay in that spot, it did feel worse to me to be there. It almost made me feel victimized, and I don't like that. I don't like that victim feeling. So it wasn't long in my journey where I thought, no, I'm giving nothing but positive things attention, because then I'm like stronger, or I have more direction, or I understand. And the things that I was unsure about, I kept to myself and cultivated until I was okay to decide if it was a goal, just a thought, or a passing moment. But I don't know. I found that that was something that I didn't like, that feeling. And I think that's exactly what I can kind of hear you saying today, Lori, is that why do you want to stay in that feeling? Like, why would you want to be in that discomfort or go there when you know you can either make the choice to give yourself a different energy, a different vibe, and to feel the power? Because I can hear some of you saying, it's not my fault that my husband made me upset. It's not my fault that my mother is driving me nuts. But it is your choice to decide how you're going to play into that, right, Lori? So, you know, I think of that as relationships, and I'm sure with your life coaching, you're talking about relationships as one of your aspects of coaching, right? Because relationships are a big deal when you're talking about, you know, happiness and connection in your alignment zone. And so, Lori, here's my question, and this is where I'm getting to. How do you give advice to those of us listening at home that are saying, I want to be in the alignment zone, but so-and-so isn't getting me there, or they're not helping me, or if I would be happy if this?
Oh,
what
boy.
would you say
Okay.
to that?
So there's two things I want to address based on what you said, because I think it's really important to say that when you say, I can choose to not stay in the negative, and I believe that's a result of you having an experience that there is a different way of being. Some people have never had a feeling of alignment. Like they've never ever, they don't even know that like anything beyond the suffering that they've always been in exists. And so they're just tolerating, they're coping. So I just want to put out there that if you are in that space, then I want to hold the light for them, just to say that there is a different way. And even if you haven't personally experienced it, even if you've had a horrible traumatic background, it's still available. It's still possible for someone to have that experience. So I'm going to say that because, and then whenever I catch myself believing that it's someone outside of me that's causing my discomfort, I just know I'm out of alignment just as soon as that thought comes in, because no one can make me feel anything. It's only my perception of what's keeping me out of it that's drawing me out. So for example, if I have someone in my life who is, mean and nasty, and okay, so I'm going to just kind of describe maybe two ways of perceiving that. Now there's always infinite ways, but if I'm in alignment, I can open, like, it's like you can't help but be open. Like, it's just like in alignment, you just automatically entertain alternate perceptions of the experience. So someone is angry and sad, I immediately think, wow, I've been angry and sad too. And I was angry and sad because of what I was believing to be true. And I remember believing that other people were responsible for how I felt. Like, so I'm immediately entertaining how this person could be where they are in that space. And this compassion will rise up within because you're aligned, and you almost want to love them more, because you know that it's only their thinking that's making them feel and act the way that they are, and that the true essence of who they truly are is just pure love, and they're just out of alignment and are not tapped into that. And because you are tapped in, you just know that that's who their true essence of who they really are. And so the blaming just has no place to stick. Like, it's just like, you just want to love them. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to stand there and let them hit me. But like, if I am in that loving, kind place, compassionate place, I'm also going to do what's in my best interest in that moment too. And maybe it's to excuse myself. Maybe it's to leave. I don't know, but I can't know until I'm in that moment. But that's where I'm going to make that choice of what is a loving thing what action is loving for me in this place? What action is loving for this person, for me to do with this person? So if I'm out of alignment, I perceive what's happening in a very narrow way. And I'm perceiving it through my past. I'm perceiving it through my previous experiences with this person or people like them, or situations I've been in my past. So for example, this client told me a story. She said, I'm taking a class and I'm really enjoying it. And then somebody brings up, wow, we should get tested on this because we'd be able to learn it better. And she said, oh my gosh, it was so amazing, because I immediately like crunched up and got nervous, because now I'm going to be put in the limelight. I'm going to have to demonstrate this up in front of other people, and I'm going to feel small and sad, and all these things were getting triggered within her because her perception of that experience of just somebody saying, I think we should get tested on it, was completely tainted by her past. And that's the same thing that happens when we're blaming somebody for making us feel a certain way. It's not them. It has nothing to do with them. It has to do with whatever they've done or said is triggering something that we've experienced in the past, and we're reacting based on an old strategy that no longer serves us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I find it so fascinating. And I can think of probably, I would say 5 times an hour where I know that I have been aware of, this is not, not my monkey, not my circus kind of thing, and where I'm not having to be, the perception of what I'm seeing outside of myself does not have to change or alter my state. But I also feel like sometimes someone might say to us, what if someone is upset that you're not altered by their state? So as an example, we have, and I'm just going to use the spouse connection again. So you have, you know, the spouses, and one of them is saying, I'm upset, I'm hurt. And the other one says, yes, I hear you. I've been there before. You know, what can we do? What do you think? They're listening, they're open, but they're not necessarily saying, I'm sorry I made you feel this way, because maybe they don't feel that way. And now the other person is mad because the other person isn't upset or triggered or responding in the negative way. So how do you get out of that circle? Because I know there's always that kind of need for somebody to take accountability and stand up. And if you're not doing that, then I'm not going to forgive you. And I'm holding in that zone. And that's the one that I find is so tricky when you're trying to, you know, stay in your own state, and then you have somebody else saying, oh no, I'm going to make you miserable until you change states. So how do you say that?
Yeah, you know, this is okay, so what jumps out at me as soon as I need somebody to behave in a certain way so that I feel, okay, that's a limiting belief, because I'm already out of alignment, because I'm believing that it's their behavior that caused me to feel this way. And one of the tricks is, I'm sure you've heard of it before, is mirroring. Mm-hmm. And that which we point out in someone else is something that we need to work on. So in this particular situation, I like zeroed in immediately. As soon as you said they need to be accountable, I would say, so where in your life are you not being accountable? Because it's such a trigger for them, that tells me that that's something that they're denying within themselves. And so chances are, somewhere in their past, they were not accountable for their actions. And and that behavior is keeping them out of alignment. It doesn't feel good. And it's like that agitation, that is what's drawing them out. That's what's making this person appear to be so not accountable, because they themselves need to come to peace with a time in their life when they weren't accountable. And I bet you if I worked with them, we could probably try to find instances of where they have not been accountable. And once we're able to heal that, then chances are this same person could do the exact same behavior and it won't bother them. Be like, oh, okay, whatever. It's only bothering them because it's something within them that they need to work on.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, because that is, again, it's like, wow, there might be that light in a situation. Like, so for people listening and being able to kind of resonate with what that example was, they might think, oh my goodness, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There might be something that we can see to help us through that cycle, because it's not a once in a lifetime thing. A lot of times it's that cycle till you identify where it is that you need to kind of heal from. And that, I feel, is why, you know, a lot of people may want to avoid the conflict, or, you know, end a relationship, or quit a job, or, you know, drop out of school, because instead of having that, well, I'm going to have to go through that awkward feeling to get my goal or to be happy, because I have to justify my accountability towards somebody else for whatever reason, and they're not going to accept it, so I'm going to have to just leave. So there's that kind of, you know, area in that example in which a lot of people choose to flight versus sit and try to sort it out.
It's just going to recreate itself in whatever. So they'll leave this, but that accountability is within them that they need to work on, and they take them with themselves to the next situation. It might be a boyfriend, it might be an employer, it might be the you know, the cashier, but because the accountability has nothing to do with the other person. Now people will say, yeah, but that doesn't, you know, how can people do things and get away with it? Don't they need to be accountable? Well, if it's bugging you, it's your stuff. If it's bugging them, it's their stuff. So it's kind of like, I love Byron Katie. She says there's 3 types of business. There's your business, their business, and God's business. And so you ask yourself, whose business are you in? And what I've come to see is that my only job is to stay in my business. And if I deal with my own business, I can keep myself in alignment and live life in my natural state of peace and calm. And to me, that is my utmost goal forever. Because from that place, there's a freedom of not requiring anything else. And then that's how living in the moment can become a joy rather than a task, because that's your natural state.
Yeah, and that's the biggest goal, and that's something I do in my practice is how do we live in the moment? How are you being more mindful of what's happening now? You're too worried about what's happening in the future. You're worried about what happened in the past, but you're not at all focused on what's happening right in this moment to trigger the feelings of anxiousness or depression or scattered. You're just not even sure where you want to go or what you want to do. And I'm sure you've had clients who just don't even know. And that's one of the movies I always refer to as Runaway Bride. Have you seen that with Julia Roberts?
Yes.
And the poor girl, her character, had no idea what she even liked for breakfast, like what kind of egg, and so when she finally had that scene where she was able to, make all the eggs and decide which one she actually liked, it triggered me to feel so like calm and empowered for her in this character. Yes. Because that's what we need. We need that mindfulness to go within and figure out, what do you want? Because when you're living out of that alignment zone, you're living with, expectations that you might not be able to meet. You're living with, resentment of things that you didn't get or didn't have, or your anger, and you're completely lost and you don't know which direction to go because maybe generational or limiting beliefs said, you can't do that. Like if you want to be an artist, you can't do that. You're never going to earn money doing that, or whatever the situation is. So to me, it feels so important to be mindful, to bring yourself back to, what do I know is happening right now? And what do I know is my story? And how am I contributing to making it better, keeping it the same, or making it a little bit more creative on the negative side so that it's a little bit more stressful for me, right?
I think, you really touch on a really important point is that, about the eggs, it's like, we got to find that alignment state of being, to recognize that it exists. Because I think what I hear you said, is that we are either resisting something or we're seeking something. And if we are doing either, we're not aligned. Because goal setting in a state of alignment is allowing, it's not pursuing. And so that state of being, when, a lot of us, we use the words, let's be mindful, let's be in the moment. But for a lot of people, they're like, don't know what that means.
Yes, it's true.
Or if they do think that they know what it means, they're in the comfort zone. They're actually not in alignment. And I think that's what I feel like my mission is to let's raise the bar, people. Let's open ourselves up to something bigger and greater that already exists within us. Because when people start to get the taste of that is what gets people to make the changes that are needed to start living life from that space. It's like they got to walk through the fire. It's like, let's set the bar and just be open to the possibility that you need nothing other than what you have right now to have everything you've ever wanted. Like that's a big statement, but it exists.
Absolutely. And I feel so strongly about that even right now. There are a lot of us that are fortunate to have exactly what we need right now in the state of a pandemic. We have a roof over our heads. We have access to food. We have heat. We have air conditioning. We have water. We have a shower. Those are things you need. You don't necessarily need all of those other things that you thought you needed. So right now, essentially, I feel like a lot of us are becoming more awakened to what we have is what we already need, and what we need is what we already have. But I always hear, I'll be happy when I get this house. I'll be happy when I get that job. I'll be happy when I'm making X number of dollars. But when that same person gets to that, they're feeling like empty, because they don't get that vibe. They don't get that feeling. So they're always kind of searching, like you said, searching for the next thing to create that feeling that they're longing for, which essentially, like you said, is there already. But are your goals in alignment with your true self? Because what you said was so true. Your goals, while you're making goals in alignment, it's being open to them. It's being, allowing them to come.
Yeah.
But when you're out of alignment and you're making goals and you receive those goals, if you're lucky enough to receive them, you're still not going to have that feeling of validation and fulfillment, or you're getting it at a cost, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot tied up in all that. Like, it sounds so simple. Like, let's set a goal from I come out of meditation, I can set a goal and I'll be in a state of allowing, and the law of attraction will, it'll happen. And yeah. However, unconsciously, there's so much more going on from our past that, if left unsupervised, takes over. Mm-hmm. So for example, a lot of times when I'm working with people in a coaching session, it might take a little while, but I talk a lot about happiness, but most times when I'm in a coaching session, I'll explore with a client, like, how do you know you're happy? Like what is the experience that you're looking for? And to me, happiness is an aligned state, but it wasn't always that. Happiness was to feel valued, to be loved and appreciated. And just by using those words, those are all external things. To be appreciated or of value means I have to take in somebody else's opinion to trigger happiness within me. So that instantaneously, if I was to work with a client right from that space, we'd be working out of alignment. So one of the first things I like to do is really to explore, does this client or has this client ever experienced a state of alignment? And how did they know? What was it like for them? And how did they know that they were in a state of alignment? Interestingly, I had this one client, and I did this with her. And this is an extreme example, of course, but sometimes they're the most interesting, right? Mm-hmm. I was trying to explore, like, have they ever experienced alignment? Because if we want to, move to a place where somebody can be in the flow and open to, we have to know that we're there, right? That's where we're making our goals from. And they shared a story where they were in a death-defying struggle, like hanging from a branch and, gonna fall, 20 feet, and, begging for someone to help her, and nobody was helping her. And then finally somebody reached down and got her off that twig so that she was safe. And she said that in that moment I was aligned. And I just was like, oh my gosh, it was so shocking to me. And I realized how that is not a state of alignment. She was in a state of relief, and a state of relief is a state of resisting. So we had to recalibrate that feeling of relief. Although it felt good, it probably felt euphoric. I mean, we can all appreciate that when you're fearful and then you're not fearful, it's like, oh, and it feels good, but that is not the same as being aligned with the true essence of who you are. Relief is not the same as alignment, because relief comes from a belief that she's going to die. I mean, that's where it came from. But when you're aligned, you have a sense that whatever is happening is exactly the way it's supposed to happen, regardless of circumstances, regardless of what's going on. So I think a lot of us believe that a state of alignment is equivalent to the release of fear or the excitement of getting something. Like that's, we've got it confused. And I know you work with people with meditation, and but in meditation, in my experience, just practicing meditation got me in touch with the true essence of who I am. It didn't necessarily, I had to work on my limiting beliefs too, but it was the piece that I needed to understand that there was another state of being that we're meant to experience. Mm-hmm. And just learning to meditate got me in touch with it. And then I had to work on what was keeping me from being in that place all the time. Because I believe meditation, you can live life in a state of meditation, because meditation is just being present. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how we're supposed to be living our lives, like not cross-legged, in a yogic position, yeah, but just being very aware and conscious of everything. And again, in that alignment zone, because yes, when we are sitting and we're taking in our experiences, it's a lot easier to be in that kind of very connected, aligned state. But we can be just as consciously aware when we're driving or when we're walking. But a lot of us are just checked out, and we're just all in our heads and not in touch with that. I don't know.
That's when I'm the most connected, is driving, having a shower, washing the dishes, kind of just, going for a walk. Now, mind you, when I'm using my examples, this took years for me to be able to kind of get to. Yeah. So when I'm using myself as an example, it's kind of like, okay, you've practiced this and when you identify, what it feels like to be out of alignment, what it feels like to be in alignment. So, but what I'm saying is, if I can do it, then other people can do it too, right? It's not something that you have to be completely spiritually enlightened. You have to be, a Buddhist. You have to be blah, blah, blah. You don't have to be anything. You just have to be willing to experience your alignment, to be willing to be open to your experience, and to, I guess, drop the expectations, because the expectations I found for myself, Lori, were I'm expecting A, B, and C. So when A, B, and C didn't come, is it a measurement of failure? Is it a measurement of success? Is it a measurement of stress, resentment, frustration? Or is it that is not your true path? People joke all the time and say, I'm going to win the lottery. And I think, well, maybe this is not your authentic journey. You're not supposed to be winning the lottery. So for you to, have a big windfall of money may not necessarily be in alignment with what you're doing. And therefore that happiness, fulfillment, peace, and just pure alignment are not going to be felt or experienced. So I always feel, I think the reason I can get there is because I'm just accepting what is. This is what I have. And when you said about how do you experience, or people, is it relief, or is it, happiness or pride? I think that I experience alignment with just a sense of, how am I going to say this? Like I almost pause and look around my day and think, thank you. Like I'm almost like just grateful for what I have. I could be up to my elbows in dishes or have, a lot of things on the go, but none of that is defining my alignment. My alignment is kind of like, okay, I know in this moment I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I almost feel like affirmed or something. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, because gratitude, that's why everybody says, oh, be grateful, because being grateful is like the same as being aligned with the true essence of who you are. Like that's an extension of that. So because what happens when you're grateful is that you are open perceptually to the gifts in the moment, which is allowing what is. So it's like, so the act of being grateful requires your brain to line up with the true essence of who you are, because it's perceiving the gifts in the moment. And as soon as you do that, you're in alignment. And so, you know, the way I kind of demonstrate it to people, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I'll say, okay, so I'm doing dishes. I got to do dishes. That feels, just that statement feels I'm moving out of alignment, because it's got baggage. It's got like, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. So that's resistance to the present moment. So as soon as I recognize it, like you said, I pause, and it's like, what is the gift in this moment? I have dishes. I have water to wash my dishes. What a beautiful thing. I have more than enough dishes. I have so many dishes. I got a sink full. And I had food to put on those dishes to make them dirty. Like, and so because of that, I'm recognizing the gifts. I'm automatically pulling myself into alignment. Mm-hmm. And I think what you said is so beautiful, is that it's the pause. It's the pause between your brain going on automatic pilot and pulling you into the old story of how you shouldn't be doing dishes. And that pause is allowing that perception to open up and entertain the gifts in the moment, because recognizing those gifts is going to be a powerful strategy in maintaining your alignment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, it's so beautiful when you can get to that space, because, you know, I was with you when you said I have to do dishes. I immediately thought, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know, one more thing. But when I think back to it, I think of, oh, okay, I have to spend all day Saturday doing house chores. Like, it's like, I know I can't, instead of saying, all right, we're going to do dishes and laundry on Saturday, it was, okay, all day Saturday, no one's doing anything. We're getting the house cleaned. So, you know, you just, in my experience, it was like, oh my God, doing dishes is going to take all day. I don't want to do this all day, you know? So again, that's the perception or the limiting belief, or the way that I understood it. It may not have meant that. It meant here are the things that need to be done, and no one's doing anything until we've done it. But in my mind, I was like, oh my God, I have to put in like 12 hours. And I don't know what to do for 12 hours, because it's not supposed to take me 12 hours. So really why I shared that is because it could just be on exactly that, how somebody stated something and how you understood it, which is the perception, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
I try to just, you know, think to myself now, you know, for those little mundane tasks that are necessary, you have to do. Every single person has to do them at some point. And it's almost just like that, exactly. Oh, we had a great turkey dinner, and there was lots of dishes because we had our family around the table, and very grateful for it. And guess what? I get to clean them all up, shine them, put them away, and we'll have it next time. And it's not an everyday thing. Sometimes it might, you know, use styrofoam plates or something that you can do to kind of change how you experience it. Yeah.
I think that, you know, but even something as simple as doing dishes, it's about the choice that you always have to remain in a state of suffering or to bring yourself into alignment. Like you always have that choice. So I can do dishes and be mad that I have to do dishes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I mean, everyone has the choice to live the life exactly the way they want. And I'm not suggesting that they need to be grateful about doing dishes. But what I can say is that from my experience, when I am not grateful, it doesn't feel good. And when I look for the gifts and I cultivate the gifts and cultivate that gratitude, it feels good. So I just started to choose that I want to feel good. I refuse to allow myself to sit in suffering when I know I have the ability to not. Like it just, and when I kind of just set that bar, and that's what I'm saying, people, let's, you know, raise the bar. And you know, you can live a life of suffering, and I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. You can do whatever you want in your life. But you know, what if you didn't have to do that? What if you could choose to create the habits and the strategies to live life in a place of alignment and of your calm and peace and happiness? Like, that is possible. It's our choice. And this used to kind of make me angry. And I just want to say this because some people who are in the midst of fear or hanging from a branch and waiting for someone to save them, it really feels like you don't have a choice. But even that example, you can hang from a branch and be in a natural state of calm and be open to a solution of how to get off the branch and onto solid ground. Or you can be terrified and look for a way to get on solid ground. There's two ways. And it's your choice on which way you want to use it. You know, I use this example of, I don't know if we have time, but, you know, as you know, I have muscular dystrophy. And as a result of the muscular dystrophy, I used to fall a lot and on the ground and not know if I'm ever going to get up. And it was quite terrifying. That was my hanging from the branch, is just never knowing, where am I going to fall? You know, will I ever get up again? And will I break something? Will I hurt? Like, it was just constant. And I was practicing all these things that we were talking about, because like you said, it took me a long time to learn how to suffer. So it took me a while to learn how to not, right?
Yeah.
And there was this one day I fell in the kitchen and I'm lying on my back. And the first thought I had was, what's the gift in this? And it kind of was comical at the moment, because I was able to observe myself staying in alignment during a situation which in the past had totally sent me into fear and sadness. And in that moment, when I was able to just say, there's a gift, I just need to look for it, I was, like you said, I paused. And I remember looking at the ceiling and I thought, I haven't looked at the ceiling like this in a really long time. And I turned my head and I looked over, and on the baseboard was some splatter, like from dropping something, I'm sure. And I thought, I would never have seen that if I hadn't fallen on the floor. And so I reached in the cupboard, lying on my back, I grabbed a rag, I wiped it off, no kidding. And I still don't know how I'm going to get up. But the thing was, I was just in that state of alignment. I was open to how to move to a standing position in a calm, peaceful way. And eventually I put the rag away and I found a way to a stool and I helped get myself up. And what I recognized in that moment is that falling on the floor, I had a choice of how to get to a standing position. I could be fearful and upset and sad and then stand up, or I could be calm, peaceful, and eventually stand up. And I started to see falling didn't create my unhappiness. My perception of falling is what created my unhappiness. And so if it created my unhappiness, I had the same power to choose a way to move through life and be happy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that with us, because I truly feel that you're always given the choice to decide which way you're going to do something. And like you say, it's infinite as to what your choices could be.
Yeah.
But if you do pause and you do think for a moment, or not think for a moment, or just pause in general, you're able to kind of get out of that state. If it is a negative state or a fear-based worry state, and that has happened, multiple times. My car didn't start one day when I stopped at a stop sign, and I thought to myself, well, great, now my car is not working. And it was just, a series of things to get out of the house that day. But if my car hadn't have stopped, I wouldn't have seen a train that came without the signals going down. It just came right by, like out of nowhere, really. And I thought to myself, thank God my car stopped. Like, thank God I couldn't make it go. So, I mean, there are always us falling and, you know, things breaking and something happening where it's not an easy motion or day, and a series of events that kind of make us pause. It could get frustrating, or you could be like, okay, why is this not working today? Why am I having trouble getting to here, or having this interview, or doing this appointment, or you know, having people come over for a visit? What is causing that to have so many red flags? And yeah, by pausing, you actually can listen for it and realign.
Yeah. And the pause too, like, you know, there's always why are things happening? Things are happening exactly the way they're supposed to happen. They may not be in alignment with our mind's view of what should happen, but our mind's view is not necessarily in our best interest, but it makes us believe that it is. And so, yeah, that pause just allows us to align our mind's thoughts with the true essence of who we are. And yeah, you know, there's lots of times you got to see the train that didn't hit you. And I think the difficult part is trusting that we may not know why it's happening, but it's in our best interest. And even if we don't see the train, there's still a version of that experience that is happening that we've avoided or that we weren't supposed to experience. And when you have the train experience, you've got that kind of in your bank of reference, so that next time when something bad happens, you're like, well, remember the train. And so it opens you up to seeing that this is in your best interest. So it's like building up our gratitude muscle, building up our ability to recognize that things are exactly the way they're supposed to be, even if our mind believes that it's not. So for example, this pandemic, you know, it's really easy to go into all the reasons why it shouldn't be happening. But for every reason that it shouldn't be happening, there's an alternate reason of why it should that feels good. And it's really our choice into which examples we want to focus in on. And that choice is going to determine how we feel day to day. And if this pandemic is going to keep on going, I'm just inviting people to open up their perception to the possibility of the gifts of it and how it might be the best thing that's ever happened, so that in that space of alignment, they can open themselves up to being in the flow of it, and to what, you know, into what could potentially happen, how they might expand and grow and develop certain aspects of their lives that never would have occurred if this didn't happen. Like for you, like, has anything changed for you that you can recognize as a gift of the pandemic?
I have been able to spend more time creating new versions of things, or spending more time, you know, creating a better home space, which were things that were always on my list of things to do that I just never allowed or gave myself the choice to have the time to do, because of course you have to keep going.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the society's way of, you have to keep speeding up and going faster and doing more, even if it's breaking you or making you sick or whatever. So when this has happened and everything was kind of limited, you can't just easily go to shop or go to a restaurant or have things that take up your time.
Yeah.
So I've been able to do a lot around the home, my garden, and just really have that quality time, more deeper, meaningful conversations with my kids and my husband, and actually having a lot more clarity and understanding about each of them individually, things that maybe we knew about but didn't get to kind of go deep within to see, like,
so
this is
nice.
easy enough to kind of fix or to redirect or validate or whatever. And so that to me was the biggest gift ever. How about you, Lori?
Well, I was telling you earlier, my son and his fiance came and lived with me for 2.5 months. And so that would never have happened.
Yes.
And I just feel like, wow, I just had this beautiful opportunity to get to know his fiance in a deeper level, to have, touch base with my adult son and, just really get to know what's happening in his life and, his thinking, like you, like deeper than I would have gone, say, on the phone during FaceTime or whatever. I recognize the reset button. It's like, I feel like everybody got this opportunity to be like, hey, I don't have to keep doing what I've always done because I've always done it.
That's right.
And moving back, as things open up, it's like, I'm bringing choice into what I'm agreeing to do. And it's like, oh, that is just so amazing. I love that. And I think that for me, I actually dove into a completely different experience work-wise. And I kind of just closed off the conference and that because it wasn't happening. And it was like, in a way, it was like, oh, because, when you work on something for a really, really long time, I lost the joy of it.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing as I bring myself back into it and starting to tap into those projects again, it's like I'm bringing the joy is back. And it's like, oh, best thing that ever happened was just to cut it, give it a break. And I'm not sure I would have chosen to do that, like it just kind of forced me into the experience. But I'm so very grateful for that.
It's reminding you and myself, it's reminding us of why we got there in the first place, and that you are in alignment. You just maybe need to step back a little bit, give it a break, and not see it as something I have to do, but remembering why we were driven to be doing it in the first place. So it's absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And I am without a doubt that you have provided such clarity to the listeners. I want you to tell them how they can find you, because anybody who is wanting to look for a life coach, an award-winning life coach, touch base with Lori Brant. And Lori, how do they find you?
They can just go to the website. So it's www.loribrant.com. That's LORI Brant.com. And all the information's there, and they can connect with me on the contact sheet there. And then anyone who's interested in becoming a life coach, like if they felt like what I've talked about, what I do is something that they feel passionate about, because I also offer training of life coaches. And, during this time of isolation, it's not a bad time to up our skills and kind of grow and expand. So thank you, Amber, for this opportunity. Always a joy. Always an amazing experience.
A joy for me.
Yes. Yeah.
It's always a joy. And I am looking forward to seeing you again later this year. And the Spiritual Excellence Halo Awards, you won the life coach last year. And this year, because of the uncertainty of large groups, it will be online. So we're still able to enjoy all of the same things that we do. We're just going to be doing it a little bit different this October. But so watch, because I know you've been nominated already, so keep it up.
Oh, thank you. That was so amazing. That was such a beautiful award. So yes, thank you so much for doing that. And
you're very welcome. My pleasure. I was driven to, so we're just going with the flow, right?
Yeah, good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody out there for watching and for listening. And I will also post Lori's information in the comments below so that you're able to easily access her and contact her if you have any questions. Thank you, everybody. Bye.